Hey, it's Jeremy from jeremy.net. I'm a comic book artist, writer, creator, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you'd like to support this channel, get additional bonus live streams at least once a month. I've been doing them 4 times a month for the past few weeks. 4 times a month for the past couple of months. You can go to patreon.com/Jeremy. That's patreon.com/GERIMI. You also get to see my comic book pages before anybody else. I share so much more of my creative process than I do here online, so it's all at Patreon. If you'd like to see the best of my social media posts delivered all straight to your inbox, you can sign up for my newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comics, or if you read digitally on Amazon Kindle or Comixology, go to amazon.jeremy.net. I'll send you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It's a psychological thriller about a man who's cursed with visions he can't control. It's a self-contained graphic novel, black and white. And you can get volume 1 of my comic Morningstar, which is Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. This has issues 1 through 4 of an 8-issue series. It's at amazon.jeremy.net. And we have a guest today, my friend Trevor Nielson, and I'm super excited to have him on because we have talked online for many years now. It's the first time we've had a chance to talk in person. So Trevor, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
No, thanks for having me here, Jeremy. I don't know, like I said, it seems like we've talked forever online and just we're quite bumped heads in the real life or even in the virtual life.
Well, you know what?
Real life anymore is COVID. We're all dead. COVID killed us all.
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, well, if this is an afterlife, the fact that I'm working from home, spending it with my family, I'm like, I can think of worse ways to spend eternity. But you know what? I have to embarrass you for a moment, just in that I didn't tell you I was going to spring this on you, but I wanted to tell people I don't have a ton of original art on my walls, but the one piece that I do have that is my favorite is this one. This piece that you did for me years ago of Lucifer from Morningstar. And this is my favorite piece of artwork. Like when you sent this to me and I was not expecting it, I was incredibly surprised. I was like, you draw my characters better than I do. And no. I love that piece. And I'm just, I keep every day. It's the first thing I see in my studio because it's facing the door of my studio. So I see it every day when I come in. I took it off the wall so I could take a photograph of it without getting the glare from the room. But normally it's hanging on my wall. It's the first thing I see when I come in. So again, I thank you for it online, but I wanted to thank you in person. Just say
that's fan art. I do not draw better than you. There's a life in yours and a nice rawness that I dig. It's like, man, he's just got the shapes are perfect. And I screw up the shapes all the time. So,
well, you know, we have mutual appreciation for each other because like your work really inspires me, and it's a beautiful piece. So, you know, there's a lot of places that we can start, but
where do you want to go? Let's
well,
jump on the train and get going.
Well, you know what? I guess the tried and true like artist discussion is when art took over your life. Like when did it become like the thing that you're like, oh my God, I love this so much, I want to do it all the time?
Way too early. I'm trying to think. My parents were in college when I was really little, but they lived in one part of Oregon and their parents were in another part, so they traveled back and forth a lot. And so to keep the autistic mind away from them, to keep the little deviant from burning the house down. And I wasn't a troubled kid, but I liked adventure and I would go seek that shit out. So in order to keep that kind of in control, my dad tended to give me a lot of drawing stuff. And he was a geologist, but he always had a lot of tools, a lot of pens and markers and pencils, paper galore, a lot of graph paper, graph stuff. But he had to spend he was in college, so he had to spend a lot of time in the library. And so he'd give me that stuff to keep me quiet. And then that wasn't enough. And so he took me over to the infamous place, it's out of reach. The anthropology section where the dinosaurs were. You give a kid a comic level book with dinosaur pictures, was a quiet kid for many days. And so that's where that started. I think it just built from there because it's like anything. You do it over time, you get good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about observing and then translating and then, observing some more. And, you kind of get that inner editor that finds fault, but finds fault in the right way and corrects. How do I correct what I did bad?
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I hit school, I was really kind of digging a lot of that stuff. I discovered comics with my grandfather because, we lived in a really small rural town called Union, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
I think the population of Union went over 1,000 probably 5-6 years ago, and I'm not kidding. It probably only hit 1,500 like maybe this last year.
Mm-hmm.
A really tiny little logging town. And so my grandfather, there was a Rexall drug there. My grandfather would give me like a quarter or something. I could go spend that on comics. I used to buy comics and these little parachutists, which oddly enough, when I went in the Army, I became a parachutist. It's weird crap happens to you. Be warned, kids. There's some stuff's going to happen to you. So yeah, I started buying comics then. And I don't think I was buying anything really particularly good for the longest time. I think it was crap because you can get them in 3-packs. And so there's a lot of Sad Sack and Casper and all that kind of garbage. And I shouldn't call it garbage. I mean, I learned a lot of stuff there. So I've drawn that stuff, reproducing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think, what was the most controversial book I ended up getting? Like a Batman or something like that. And probably a Neil Adams Batman. So that should tell you the time.
Okay.
And that was like, oh my God, I can do this other weird stuff. I started reading really early. And so when I was in grade school, my favorite books were Edgar Rice Burroughs books.
Mm-hmm.
Tarzan. I like the Pellucidar stuff, At the Earth's Core. That really kind of really appealed to my twisted mind. And then I discovered the Mars series. So I had all this John Carter Mars stuff. I started reading some Conan, all that kind of stuff. And that led to more comics because those comics were being put out. And I want to say it was the John Carter of Mars stuff. When I first started buying that, I discovered artists. Instead of just being, hey, there's people drawing these pretty pictures. You think I'd done it with the Neil Adams stuff. It didn't happen. It's the dumb John Carter of Mars stuff. I discovered Gil Kane.
Ooh, see, I've never read any of the John Carter comics. So
now he wasn't the most consistent artist on there. Had a variety of artists on there. But Gil Kane did a run on there, and it was just his figure work was stellar and dynamic. I mean, was it most correct figure work in the world? I mean, as you get older, you go, oh, he's making a lot of this shit up. But it was dynamic, and it really kind of, appeals to those eyeballs. You're like, oh, my God, this stuff is great. And I want to say from there, I started picking up other guys kind of back and forth. One of the more significant ones was probably Mike Grell, because he was another Burroughs guy. And his character of the Warlord, when I picked that up, it's like, well, you're back in the Middle Earth. Okay, I'm on board. There's dinosaurs. And I'm almost a teenager at this point, and I'm picking this stuff up. And sorry, I got to turn my heater off.
I didn't hear any noise coming through, so if you just pick up.
So I'm picking up that Grell stuff. I that's when I kind of was in my rebellious phase. I was starting to pick up naughty books, and the naughty book I was picking up was Savage Sword of Conan, and that is the mind-blowingest thing ever, because as a kid, you've always heard about Buscema. I'll bet you I picked up 50 books from frickin' Buscema. But he was doing everything. He was doing Spider-Man, for God's sakes. Thor, the Hulk, he'd do all that crap. He was just kind of a jobber. I think he really had a thing for Conan, because those Savage Swords of Conan, oh my God, his work was just stellar. And you'd get some fantastic other artists in there, like Ernie Chan and Rudy Nebris and all those guys. And everything built upon itself. Well, that's also about the time that comics kind of did one of their little.
It was like right before the 80s indie implosion.
And so right about the time I was getting ready to graduate, I was about 16, 17 at the time. I was working full time, so I had my own money. I didn't have to rely on mom and dad. I'm buying my own clothes. I discovered First Comics, and they were in the back of a Comic Scene magazine, which I was picking up kind of regularly. I discovered First Comics, and I discovered Dave Sim. So I started buying Cerebus. And Cerebus is just that, I don't even know what to call it. There's so much background stuff that is so great.
Oh, yeah.
Buying all the rest. And Sim's work is great anyway, but
Gerard's backgrounds, they're a main course unto themselves. You can come to the book just for his backgrounds.
Oh my God. And Gerard, if you ever get to meet Gerard, go meet that guy, because he is so, I don't even have to describe it. He's another guy. There's no secret, man. He'll tell you how he did it all. It's like, oh, please. Yeah, I just referenced some stuff here, and then I started filling it in, and it was just, horror vacui after that. I just filled in every corner.
You know what? I think I said his name wrong. I think it's Gerhard. Yeah.
Yeah, he came down with Dave Sim to a thing here, and we hung out for like 2 days. I had a better time with Gerhard than I did with Sim.
Well, never met either of them. I've heard that Sim can be quite prickly.
Well, it's odd. Sim's got his own thing. He's like, all right, people in the chat, I'm going to bash on religion here a little bit. Very religious people, I always find odd, because the religion is the center of everything for them, and they can't relate to anything without coming back to that center. That's Dave Sim. Everything is about his weird, hokey amalgam of religion that he's made. And can you separate the art from the artist? Well, I can't, fortunately, because I really love the way Dave Sim approaches problems. Yeah. His personal views on stuff. Come on, Dave. But Gerhard, that is a jobber artist, but he's a great jobber artist. So, yeah, I discovered that stuff. I mentioned I've discovered First Comics, and I discovered them because Mike Grell had gone to Pacific and was doing Star Slayer, and then he went over to First and did John Sable Freelance. I had to follow that stuff. It's like, I love Grell. Oh my God, Grell's the greatest. Well, in doing that, I found all the other stuff was going on. Like Warp was fantastic. And then the most infamous book I think I ever picked up.
I've got that. The Dynamite reprint. That book. Oh, I love that book.
And so, yeah, I discovered Chaykin, and Chaykin was another guy who just changed the way I thought about comics. Because Chaykin was all about design on the page. And I don't think there's anybody who lays out a page as good as Chaykin. Even to this day, I don't think there's anybody who lays out a page as good. I think he has equals, and some of them are the guys he really loves. Like, he was big into Johnny Craig from the days, and he really loves Toth. And for me, Toth could do no wrong, but I came to Toth after all that stuff. So I see Chaykin's work, and it's just, oh my God, look how he lays out these pages. They just read, even if they're complicated, they read perfectly. And Chaykin was doing this weird stuff where he would wrap sound effects to follow cars. And I mean, there's just all this design in there. And it just, like I said, that was mind-changing, mind-blowing. And so once First kind of fell apart and the industry kind of went again, I made a whole bunch of comic missteps. I held in this stupid hand, I held Ninja Turtles #1, first print in Texas, and went, this book looks stupid. I'm not picking it up.
You know what, though? But you have to read what you love. I mean, if you're really just going to buy something because it's going to go up or down in value, then you might as well just trade stocks. I don't even want it for the fact it went up and down in value. That was something I should have been chasing, because there are guys that were chasing Miller, and I just barely discovered Miller's Daredevil run, and I didn't like that era of Miller. I admit it. I liked Miller when he left Daredevil and went to DC and did Ronin, and then it was like, oh my God, Ninja Turtles has already come out. I'm an idiot. I admit it. I should have been chasing that stuff. But I didn't have an appreciation of independent comics at that point. Frankly, there weren't a lot of them. Most of them were sold in the drug shops. I hate hippies. I don't want to go anywhere near the steam suckers. So I kind of avoided where that stuff was being sold. I wish
I hadn't, because there was a lot of really good stuff that I missed out on because I didn't go over there. I discovered it later. I had to go back and get ElfQuest. Mm-hmm. It's dumb that it was sold in that shop, because ElfQuest is a really polished book and there's nothing particularly scandalous in it. You know?
Yeah. I mean, there's sex in it, but it's not, you know, it's not like Arrow's Comics sex. It's like
I can see that watching late night TV.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Heavy Metal Magazine, which in terms of me getting racy stuff,
that's another one.
Yeah.
Right about the time I got into all that first comic stuff, I discovered heavy metal. And who's in heavy metal at this time? Oh, it's Mobius. Oh my God. The worlds have changed for Trev again. And so I'm oddly enough, art-wise, I'm trying to mesh all these different influences into each other. Mm-hmm. And trying to create this voice that, I'm making it sound so cerebral. It really wasn't. It was, I want to do this like Howard Chaykin, but I want to do this like Mike Grill, and I want to have this anatomy from John Buscema. And I think along the way, I kind of picked some of that up, but I didn't really kind of make the connections that these guys had already made. And so, I like I said, at that time I was in the Army. I was gone through jump school and all that stuff. I was doing, little rubber games for little rubber people. So I get out, I go to college, I go to art school, and I hate to kick higher education, but I learned nothing in college. Nothing that I didn't learn on my own. And so when people ask me about the value of going to art school, go apprentice with somebody. I learned more from Batton Lash in a year than I learned in 4.5 years of college. And that's just, sorry, that's the facts. Did I learn how to draw a perfect anatomy? No, but I got books and books and books of that shit over here. I can learn that stuff. And how I started getting better at it, I just take the book, page 1. Here's what he wants you to draw. Draw it 5 or 6 times. Page 2, here's what he wants you to draw. What's the concept he's trying to get? Is it this weird muscular skeletal thing? Yeah, okay, great. People go on and on about Burton Hogarth's anatomy in his books. It's like, yeah, but the dynamic part is what you really want. Get that part. You can pick up the other stuff by Bridgman, who is fantastic at it. I mean, there's no faulting Bridgman.
I'll tell you this. I was actually talking with some people, some other artists, and I threw out an idea that I think is pretty controversial, which was that I think Bridgman distorts the figure just as much as Hogarth, but for some reason doesn't get nearly as much shit for it.
I think it's because he was more academic on how he did it. Mm-hmm. He would tell you, this is how I want you to do this because the clavicle runs like this. And then he goes, yeah, but it looks better if I draw it like this.
Exactly. Like if you look at Bridgman's legs, the line that is the back of the thigh always flows right into the front of the shin. And yes, while there might be a shift back in the way the bones get together, it's like, it's a shift. You're like, no, this is just a stylistic thing. The human body doesn't do that. But it looks beautiful when Bridgman does it.
Yeah. And I think Hogarth knew that. I think that's kind of what he was trying to do. But Hogarth was better at layering the muscles, I think. Mm-hmm. Bridgman does it pretty well, but Hogarth just knows the muscles flows over each other. They do that weird overlapping thing, and it makes things.
Well, you know what? Before there is something that I want to jump on that you mentioned there, but before that, I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody that's in the chat, because it's like the gang is here. I see Joseph's here, Amar's here. Want to at least say hi to you guys, because and this guy came in, Dim Boy at the beginning. So I just wanted to tell you guys, we see you there, but Trevor and I are going to chop it up, because this is the first time we had a chance to talk. So I'll look at the chat every once in a while. If you guys have questions, we'll address the question specifically. But we're just gonna. This one isn't gonna necessarily be as much back and forth with the chat as usual, because we're getting into it.
and I'll try to keep a glance at the chat. If you guys specifically make my name in bold, I will answer whatever questions you got.
So we're loving.
Long said there should be no secrets in art, and too many people treat this like it's mysticism.
Yeah.
It's not. It's you want to get good at art, do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Talent, you're looking at a guy who's going to flat out tell you, I don't believe in actual talent. There's no such thing as far as I'm concerned. There is a lot of skill and some imagination that you learn how to translate. But there's no more talent here than there is learning to speak in public. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing in terms of learning. I've seen like there's periods where I spend more time doing figure studies and like more time in actual figure drawing classes. And I've seen the period when I put more attention to it, my skills grow and increase faster. When I put less in it, it grows less. And if there's times when I'm, for some reason, it's not true of all artists, but for me, if I'm just making comics but not studying, my anatomy actually starts getting wonkier and wonkier.
Yeah,
some people can use any drawing as a process to continue to improve. For me, when I'm drawing comics, I'm thinking about story and storytelling. Like you mentioned Toth earlier, I'm like smack dab in the middle of my big Toth phase. So I'm really getting into him. Like I got the cartoon kayfabe guys mentioned that Bravo for Adventure Artist Edition.
So good.
I know. I went out and got. I hadn't owned any artist editions before because all the people who did the ones I wanted. Really, for me, it was just I wanted the Thor one, and that one came out before I had a chance to get it. And there were a couple, but I didn't jump on them. This was one where I'm like, it's available. I'm gonna get it, and it's like I lay that out every couple of days, and I just sit, just flip through a couple of pages and just soak them in. It's so beautiful. But
I'm trying to find a specific Toth book here.
Whoa, careful there.
Shoot, where'd it go? Ah, there it is. Here's another one for you.
Let's see.
This is
the creepy one?
Creepy one. Because he does a lot of gray,
mm-hmm.
a lot of wash painting in this. Mm-hmm. And you can still see that Alex Toth hand. And there's times he's using those duotone boards, and
mm-hmm.
I mean, look at this.
All right, I think I may have to get that.
And this is one of those dumb finds that I found on Amazon. Well,
mm-hmm.
book under. I found it on Amazon for disgustingly cheap, like $7 or some crap like that. Mine, send that shit.
All right, I think I may have to jump on that too, because what's weird is the Toth books that I have are I don't have the Genius series, but I have these. Yeah, I should get those. I go back and forth because I have so many.
Hunt some comic shops for those because I've got mine all on the cheap.
Mm-hmm.
The only one I don't have is the big white one, the animation one.
Mm-hmm.
But I got the other two on the cheap and
mm-hmm.
like I think $40 or something like that. And there's so much great because you get a lot of Toth's ideas in those.
Mm-hmm.
Talks about why this is important. And it's like, oh my god, this is the best part ever.
Yeah.
Toth is world changer.
Well, I got a couple of reprints, and they're from this company called Pure Imagination, and they're just reprints of like army comics he's done, like war stories, romance stories, a couple of sci-fi and crime pieces, but just like a weird collection of different reprints throughout the years. Just like a couple of volumes of that. But the book that really got me is have you heard of the Toth Doodle book?
Yes, I never found that damn thing.
Oh, I heard an interview years ago with the guy who was publishing it, the guy that Toth was actually writing letters to. And as soon as I heard that interview, I went online, I bought it. That book is one of my most treasured possessions because it's literally like a book. I
don't want to say I hate you, but I would work for that forever. And just if I did find it, it was price prohibitive.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I gotta get this. This is
that thing. It's like reading a book length version of the critique that he gave Steve Rude.
Yeah,
it's like a book
famous.
Yeah, it's like a book length version of that, but illustrated. And it's just
you don't know what he's talking about. Look up Alex Toth, Steve Rude. It is fantastic. Mm-hmm. You can see a master artist telling another master artist to fix his game.
Yeah.
And mostly right. He does kind of miss some points. Like he criticizes Rude on that camera, and Rude actually referenced the camera. But he's right on almost everything else. It's like your composition terrible here, your storytelling bad. I do the bad storytelling all the time. It's like, god damn it, Toth could kill me right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm going back and looking at him, is because I've never developed a deadline style. I just finished the last page of Morningstar, so the whole thing is done. I'm just doing gray tones now on the series, but I realized it took me a decade to do 8 issues. I would get eaten up by the monthly comics industry. So
you know where you'd succeed is in the European model.
Well, that's what I'm going to switch to. I'm going to start trying to do
8 years.
Yeah,
that book ain't that big.
Well, I'm going to switch to doing 48-page albums and try to do stories that are kind of more done in one. But I don't want to dig into that, because where I wanted to go was you mentioned Batton Lash, and of course, okay, so you were an apprentice for him. I want to hear about how that apprenticeship came to be. And I met him once or twice at San Diego, because I know his wife is one of the big organizers of San Diego.
Jackie Estrada.
Jackie Estrada. And he was a great loss for those who don't know. He passed a few years back, but a brilliant artist, a wonderful human being. Everyone I know has great things to say about him. I only met him a few times briefly, but he was also incredibly nice and encouraging. I'd love to hear about both how that internship happened and what kind of the day-to-day was, as well as the big things you took away from it.
Well, let's lay some groundwork here. So Batton, I feel, is one of those guys that will be appreciated by other artists in the future. They will all be hunting up his books, because Batton went to the School of Vocational Arts or School of Fine Arts in New York. I can't remember what it was. Basically a high school / college art school. And so he had instruction. His favorite instructor there was Harvey Kurtzman. And so Batton has a lot of that Harvey Kurtzman in his head. But another one of his favorite instructors was Will Eisner. And so Batton telling a story is Will Eisner. Batton making cartoons is Kurtzman. Batton's style is along the lines of more of Dan DeCarlo and Ditko. He loves Ditko. And he got Ditko to ink one of the books we were working on. And I love the story. Batton tells the story. He's like, we did all the penciling, all the boards, sent them off to Ditko to ink. Ditko sends them back, and for every 5 lines they put on, Ditko inked 1. and the one he inked was the important one. So it was like all this other shit I didn't need. There we go. That thick line right there. That's all that crap. And if you find that issue that Ditko inked, it is just, you just kind of, okay. It's like the most perfect ape of Ditko ever, but it's Batton that laid everything out, and Ditko just, wow. And there have been some great people working on his book, but I digress. So we're laying the foundation there. So he's got these classic EC guys, classic Will Eisner, all these guys that were kind of jobbers coming up from those older era generation. Guys I barely found out about when I was in my 30s. So those were his teachers. He talked, I think it was not Kurtzman, it was the other one, who ended up doing Little Annie Fanny.
Will Elder. It was Kurtzman and Will Elder, I think.
It was Kurtzman, Elder, and a bunch of others. But anyway, they all had to give, I can't believe you're working for Playboy and you're doing this thing. It's like, look, for what Playboy's paying me, Annie, I have a soft spot in her because she bought me a house. So Batton told that story too. So anyway, Batton gets out of that thing, and I'm trying to remember I don't remember how it came about. He ends up spotting blacks and being the assistant for Howard Chaykin. And from what I get, that was kind of an abrasive relationship. Batton's a super nice guy, kind of a pushover sometimes, but Chaykin is always abrasive.
Yes.
Chaykin has an opinion about everything. Everything. And he will argue with you about everything. I love Chaykin to death. After Batton had introduced us, I talked to Chaykin a bunch. Would I call us friends? Probably not. But I love Chaykin, and Chaykin will lay it out. Chaykin has my favorite line from a Comic-Con. So I've got my book all put together. I've got a little freaking handful of it, which I've laid down someplace. So I'm being all precious. Where's my book? Howard's like, oh, what are you going to do with that thing? It's like, well, I was going to kind of chop it around a little bit. He's looking at it. Yeah, I dig this. This is okay. This is have you taken it over to DC guys? So they're going to reject it, but just show it to them. Yeah, kind of there. I was going to take it over my portfolio review over here. So you haven't taken that to Neil Adams, have you? I said, no, I've watched Neil Adams already dog a bunch of people, and I can deal with that kind of pain. He goes, you're right. Fuck that guy. And that is such a Chaykin thing. But anyway, so Batton's got that relationship with Chaykin. They're tight, and one of the characters in the book is actually a Chaykin, amalgam, basically. Mm-hmm. So anyway, he stops working for Chaykin. He gets a kind of a job. He do just spot cartoons and different things. Well, he gets this job to create a cartoon strip in the Brooklyn Law Journal. And here's your rare Batton Lash piece. If you have this red book, this is the one, because this is the Brooklyn Law Journal, the strips. And you actually see that the weird hair that he puts on the lead character start out that way. It's we talked about it a lot in the studio. Weird spiky hair thing. The reason he goes to that, it was easier to cut Zipatone around.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's practical.
He has a curly kind of just styled hairdo, and it was such a pain in the ass to cut the Zipatone around that he went to a stylized one that he just whoop, 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 whoop. Okay, done. So cartooning 101 there. You're going to be doing this a lot. If it's giving you a pain in the ass now, you change it. So he starts that. He and Jackie get married. They move to San Diego. He renames the strip from, I want to say it started out as Wolf and Bird. And then
Supernatural Law?
And then it went to Supernatural Law. And I was still here in Salt Lake at the time. And the gal here that ran the shop, Mimi Cruz, she actually was suggesting, hey, go do some pinups for this guy, do some art for this guy, see if they'll, help you on your way, basically. And I'd done a couple, and you want stuff that sours you on the whole thing. Work for a few of these professionals. There's not a lot of professional in the professional. But I did a pinup for Batton Lash, and it's if you find it's the purple book with the incredible bulk on it. So this Hulk character that you've done, and in the back there's a cartoon that I whipped up. It's the two lawyers in their office. They've got all these Pokemon in the front and just the back of them, and they've got their deposition in their hand. And it goes, okay, I get it. There's a kid, reckless endangerment. He's putting you at risk all the time. But what we need to know is what kind of monsters are you? And that was just a one panel gag, that was it. Sent it to him, and it impressed him enough that he's like, hey, what are you doing? I need a new art assistant. Batton hated drawing backgrounds. So when I sent mine in, it had a desk and files in the background and bookshelves and books in them. He's like, would you be okay with drawing this background stuff? Just handling art chores in the background. So it's not going to pay well, if at all. It's not going to pay well. It's not going to be, super, extravagant. And you're not going to win any awards for painting backgrounds. But are you willing to do it? It's like, yeah, sure. But I was working up here for, I can't even remember the name of it. It was an aircraft company. We made carbon fiber. So this is right around 9/11. 9/11 happens. That place isn't really going out of business, but their market has shrunk because no aircraft are flying. If you're not making aircraft parts, you got no money coming in. So they're laying off people right and left, and I was one of the ones on the axe. And so I go, yeah, okay, I'll come down there. I'll move down to San Diego, and we'll see if I can hunt up a job there, and we'll do some stuff there. So I was working at an art frame shop in San Diego for a while, and then doing backgrounds for Batton Lash. And that backgrounds thing went from, hey, draw this telephone, to we're going to draw these extravagant backgrounds. I'd become his Gerhard with half the talent, if even half. That might be pushing it, because I'm drawing New York street scenes, cars, which Batton never wanted to draw.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look through those old issues, if there's a street scene, somewhere in that street scene, you'll find a Corvette. I put one in every goddamn street scene I had. And I mean, there was times when I was actually doodling in the figure works. He'd draw heads in, and I'd doodle in the figure work, go off his layout. I'm trying to remember. It's the there's a vampire story he does. That the first 2 issues of that are my ghost pencils. With he actually drew and inked the heads, and I penciled in the figures behind there and inked them. I inked over a lot of his stuff. Just everything was done kind of in the spirit of speed. And that wasn't really monthly, but if he wanted to put out an issue, it was, okay, we're going to do it here. Pencils have to be done here. Inks have to be done here. Okay, we're going to get all the text and everything put in here, because it's got to go to previews at this date to be solicited for the next month. So, suddenly you got a 40-day deadline you got to meet. And it's like, oh shit, we're cranking these things out. So that's pretty much how I met him. I just kind of stumbled blindly into it, but I tried a lot. I'd submitted a bunch, but he was the first guy to just go, yeah, come over and work. So through Batton, I met everybody, because you're in San Diego. Even though he's never been connected with the con, his wife was, and so everybody kind of kowtowed to him, because they all thought that he had some sort of power, which hilariously he never did.
And if he did, he would wield it kindly. He seemed like such a sweet guy.
Well, yeah, but he also, there's a misconception that people always made about Batton, and Batton was a pushover. Batton has no spine. It's like, bullshit. Cross him, find out. Batton was one of those guys that I had just ultimate integrity. If you hit that integrity point with him, his heels dug in. It's like, nope, not happening. And that was why it was so great to work with him, because he had a moral center that informed everything that he did. And he was willing to share that and tell you why it was important. And I was always really into philosophy. And so when we start talking about that stuff, it was, oh crap, I'm digging most of the stuff he's saying. And so, we shared this stuff up and kind of found that we were kind of simpatico. We were both swimming down the right stream. Sitting in the office was like this, except I didn't talk as much. Because everything with Batton was a story. And the stories were great. And, he would tell you stories about all these different people that you worked with. And there was a whole lot of, hey, see that? It's Gail Simone. Don't even bother with her. She's trouble. She will always be trouble. She may hire you, but I guarantee she will burn your house to the ground. She gets you. And so I learned a lot of that. And Batton's the guy that says, hey, the comic business has everything but the business. You can have a good time here, but at the same time, don't think that these guys aren't going to just slit your throat, leave you on the side of the road. He was really, really into doing your own thing, being an independent creator, owning your own stuff. And a lot of that came from these EC guys and the Marvel guys that he'd seen and worked for, and even Chaykin, where they were gone for a certain amount of time. Nobody knows who they are anymore. They don't know their name. They don't get called anymore. And Chaykin, in my opinion, has done better work than Flag. Not consistently, but he's done, like, this story was better than anything he put out in Flag. This story better than anything he put out in Flag. The one I thought Chaykin was really going to hammer it on was that Hey Kids comics.
Oh God, I only read volume 1. I haven't read the second volume yet, but I love that.
Fortunately, it doesn't go where I want it to go, or where I thought it was going to go. But I thought Howard was really going to hammer the industry with that thing, and he kind of does. He kind of, hey, here's what you guys are going to suffer for all the crap. But he never quite does it. But Howard was a guy who never could really swallow the pill of being independent, where Batton did that. And I think that's why Howard and Batton, they actually remained pretty tight, pretty close. It was because Batton had gone and done this thing and made it work. And Howard was, I don't want to say he was jealous, but he admired that. It was like, you made this thing work, where I've always been a jobber over here doing stupid things like Farfar the Gray Mouser and
you know what? I love Farfar the Gray Mouser. That was fantastic.
It was. Howard hates it. Howard freaking hates that book. I've got the book he hates the most. And it's signed. Oh God, where is it? Oh shit.
Wait, before you pull it, let me guess.
Let me
take one guess.
All
right.
Very famous, sold great.
I would hate to think that he hated this book, but Iron Wolf, the one that are we talking about books that he drew?
Books that he drew. Books he specifically was picked for.
Star Wars?
Star Wars. He hates that. I have the big giant jumbo Star Wars book. You want to get Howard, just go. You can see him roll his eyes. Fans will bring it up to him. It's like, I don't find that. I won't say anything bad.
Well, you know what though? I mean, I kind of got the back door to a lot of that in the sense that I have the large Art of Howard Chaykin book, the white covered one. And so I know he talks about sort of all of that in terms of that's pretty much his illustrated biography.
Oh yeah.
So
I wish he'd have kept doing Cody Starbuck.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really where Howard lives, is in that weird futurist kind of thing, and it appeals to him because Howard's he loves the 50s, he loves the 40s, he loves that style era. That appeals to everything Howard. And I think if he would just work in that and make that work, that would be one of the greatest things ever, because his writing has never been sharper. I mean, Howard wants to get a point across, he's good at it now. He's just bam. And he was good at it in Flag, but he gets better.
Well, yeah. I mean, even like Satellite Sam, like, you know, the more recent stuff he's done, it's still just
Sometimes it's Howard slumming. You don't get Howard kicking the can down the road. You know? I still say the best thing he ever wrote. Remember the solo issues?
I remember the series. I never picked up his.
Most of them are terrible. There's some that are stellar.
Like the Darwin Cook one is the one that everyone says, like, that's, if you're going to own one of that series, it's the Darwin Cook one. But
no, Sergio Aragonis. That's
that's right. Sergio did one.
Of the bunch, Sergio Aragonis. Darwin Cook would be second. Howard, one story that Howard threw in there. So I think each one got like 4 stories. But one of the stories Howard puts in there, I think the best thing he's ever written, because it's Howard trying to get his first job at DC. And he talks about how he did that. And I think it's just the best. So it's so interpersonal to him. It's like the best thing I think he's ever put down on paper. But you can see where all this other stuff goes. Anyway, I digress. So that's, you know, my history with Batton, it was built up to there. Like I said, he's just a guy who he gave opportunities. He was generous. You know, he always was trying. And probably the closest I came to having a big brawl at a Comic-Con was because someone came over and shit on one of his books. And I about freaking drugged Charles Brownstein into the men's bathroom and flushed him, because he pissed me off that bad. Batton always said he was going to make a book called The Batton Lash's Big Book of Slights, about all the people that had kind of crapped on him over the years. I so wish he would have. Batton would never do it because he would think it would be impolite. He's quite the gentleman. I would do it. Me, I would do it.
Well, you know, I'll tell you one thing. I may have said this to you in passing, but when you'd mentioned Bat before, but my wife, she will read some comics, but she's not a regular comic reader. She's not a comic fan. When she married me, she started getting more into comics. But there was a point when I would take her to either like my local used bookstore, or we'd take her to shows, and I would try to pick up a couple of books that I thought she would like. But I also encouraged her, like, I don't want you necessarily to read what I tell you is good. I want you to graze. I want you to pick out what looks interesting to you. So I want to, because we all go through that phase when you move out of just the characters you like and you start experimenting. I wanted to have that experience of pick up something and discover something. Oh, I like this artist, or I like this character. This cover appealed to me. Oh, the insides suck. I wanted to have that experience.
Yeah, and I remember when I found Bond Destiny. Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember there was one convention we were at, and she ended up coming back with like 2 trades of Supernatural Law, and I just smiled. I was like, yes, my wife has good taste.
I got these 2 miles away from where I'm actually trying to sit. She needs this.
The companion.
The Supernatural Law Compendium. It's a compendium of everything they've got in there. It makes references to all the characters. It tells, I mean, it is, there's a lot of my art in here.
Oh, nice.
I mean, there's actually a note in here that says, hey, this is the first one he worked on. But it goes through things like, I keep telling people that Batton Lash, the person that everybody forgets, made the 3 most infamous Archie books ever created.
Mm-hmm.
He did Archie versus Punisher, he did House of Riverdale, and he did the Jughead Year 1. I mean, all the things everybody talks about. It's like, hey, you're missing out. The Batton Lash did those. But all that stuff's in here. All the little notes from all the different books. All the people he's making fun of. Like, he does little caricatures of all kinds of different people in here. They're all in here. So that's one to pick up. A little small. Mm-hmm. If you can get a hold of the red book, get the red book.
Okay.
And of course, she probably already has Slaw. But
well, that I'm not sure which one. Yeah, I can't remember the covers of the ones she has, but there were just 2 specific trades that she picked up, and she did enjoy them. But the weird thing is that she'll check out stuff, she'll read a little bit, but then I haven't got her into the recurring habit where it's like reading comics regularly. It's more just sort of like if something's interesting, she'll look at it. But she isn't like a regular reader. So I'm just like, well, you definitely want to force down someone's throat. You know, I just figure I make them available, and I try to have stuff around that I think she'll like. But yeah, you know what?
For me, if Supernatural Law was, we had more female readers, we had male readers.
Yeah,
and it wasn't like we were looking for them, and it wasn't like everybody writes these books like, oh, I'm writing to a female audience, and yeah, how come you only have 1,500 readers? Because Batton had 4 times what you have. And he wrote a stupid thing about lawyers that do monsters. That are monsters or the clans. I shouldn't say stupid. It's very, very clever. And if you like puns, oh my God, Batton was the pun meister. And that book, like I said, we sold great to women. Everybody bought that book. They loved it. They came back for it. And I mean, it was just kind of hard to make the jump into the bigger, broader pop culture. You know, and that's kind of why it toned down over time. We made less and less and less of them because we were busy trying to keep the lights on, you know.
Yeah.
Well, rather than do the Supernatural Law thing, let's see if we can do this Vampirella thing. So I end up, drawing Vampirella rather than do this, this thing over here. Let's do Radioactive Man. So I did a lot of backgrounds for Radioactive Man, and that's over here too.
Well, it's like you said, being a jobber, you got to keep the lights on, got to keep the money coming in.
And as dopey as this comic was, it sold great. And Batton wrote all of them, and they're all great. And you want funny? That's your Simpsons funny there. And those things, they paid the bills. Damn it, they paid the bills. So, I can't say enough about them.
Yeah, it's good. Whatever keeps food on the table.
That's where I was looking at Gail.
Well, we've been talking for a good long while. We haven't been drawing. So, freshman year.
Batton wrote this, and Bill Galvin illustrated it. And Bill Galvin wrote this, and I illustrated it.
Nice.
So that's kind of how that goes. Yeah, I mean, we can keep jabbering. I'll flip mine over to my other camera there.
All right, I'm gonna. You know what? Originally, I had it set up to screen share my screen, but I think I'm gonna try doing what you're doing and switch my camera.
Actually, let's do something here real quick. I'm gonna screen share with you.
Okay.
Because on the Batton Lash subject, so we're talking about Batton Lash, and what we hold on here. He's just too monitors. Blah blah blah. Yeah, okay, I got all that. Just share the screen. So. We think of him as just a guy who did this independent comic, kind of goofy little doodad. But Batton was also a guy who was always experimenting, and I picked up that from him too. Batton was not afraid to go to the computer for stuff. When we were first started the book, when I first started the book, he had made the giant leap to printing out his text and putting it on the book there. So we're cutting out the bubbles and we're sticking them on the page. And Batton, right after that, went to digital. And he was doing digital gray tones and things like that. And I think Bat would appreciate this, where I have embraced going in and using masks and stuff to do these old style tones. If you look at here, and I mean, that's just a tone I made with a piece of graphite on a page, and then just go in, make your tone there. So you can use a really open style, which I really like. I wish I could work this way all the time, where your lines are really open, but you go in with your tones and kind of flesh it out and make it a little more round. And
you can model it, give that sense of like depth, volume.
Yeah, your depth there. You can give things weight. You can control the lighting. I was really digging that, and that's something I think Batton would have appreciated, because, like I said, he was never afraid to go in and try something new. I mean, he'd try it all. Let's see if I can. We'll swap pages here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things. Like, it's a fine line, and because I walk both sides of the street in terms of experimenting, constantly wanting to try and find new stuff, but also that idea of refining your workflow. Because some people said the way you get fast is by having a workflow and just sticking with it and perfecting it to the point where you can jam, but at the same time tweaking and refining and experiment with a different technique, experiment with different tools. It both keeps it alive and fresh, and it also sometimes you stumble into some new amazing thing that you wouldn't have thought of doing before.
I mean, like just playing around with just those sunglasses down there. It's a super simple technique, but it's super effective. And once I figured it out, I was like, why wasn't I doing this kind of stuff before? Because I can make a very stylized, figure, and still have it have that good volume, that good texture, things like that normally you'd have to sit there and noodle on. And I didn't want to noodle on this stuff. It was like, I want this to be a nice open. There's a completely different book, but a different technique here. I kind of wanted to. So even after I went in and did the line work, with just the soft edge of the eraser and just erase the edges and just get that nice,
that puffy cloud feel,
soft cloud effect.
I like that. It's nice.
And it's so easy to do. In fact, if you want the file, I'll send it to you.
Sure. Yeah, I've got Clip Studio Paint on my machine. I rarely use it, only because I at a certain point when I switched to my laptop, because the version of Photoshop I was using was Photoshop CS5, not Creative Cloud 5, CS5. So I was using like an old version of Photoshop.
Okay. I have a CS4.
Well, I got to the.
What I'm playing with is freaking. They won't let me transfer it to newer machines. It does everything I want it to do. Why can't I just keep this thing? Or we want you to go to the cloud. I don't want to go to the cloud. I want to own the damn thing I bought and be able to use it.
I ended up kind of doing the same thing in that I just ended up skipping from Photoshop. So I tried Clip Studio Paint and I didn't love it. And then I ended up also switching. I found this program called Affinity. Well, it's Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer, and Affinity Publisher. It's basically this British company's version of their Adobe suite. And they do not have all of the features as Photoshop. I'm not going to say it's as good as Photoshop. But what I am going to say is that they don't have a subscription. And I think full price, it's maybe $100 for each app. And I got them on sale for $50 each.
Yeah, I got into Clip Studio. You know who Jason Brubaker is?
Oh, yeah. Remind and Phobos. I'm actually on his Patreon.
Yeah, Jason and I are like from the same town of Pocatello, Idaho.
Oh, cool.
I mean, when he was a kid, we were going over to the comic shop and drawing comics together.
Oh, nice.
Jason and I would say we're like super tight, but we actually know each other and don't hate each other. So,
well, he seems like a real sweet guy. He seems like he'd be a hard guy to hate.
So nice. Jason's the reason I have a lot of trouble kind of thumping on people on the head. Is like, I want to be more like Jason and Batton, because those two are a lot alike. They share everything, and it's really hard to fault them on. I mean, even if they said something dumb, it'd be really hard. It's like, well, that's just their opinion, and they're sharing it out of a genuine place. But I think a lot of people do that kind of stuff just kind of hurt others, just to kick their idea in the dirt, to be superior somehow. Those guys never do it. And Jason's a guy who I know never went to any kind of college. I went to college. He never went to any college. And frankly, he's a better artist than I'll ever be. And he just did it by teaching himself and reading stuff. Like, man, he's so good. But he's the one that got me onto Clip Studio, because I was complaining one day that I hated the subscription service. Like, just get Clip Studio Pro. It'll do pretty much everything you can do on your Creative Suite. It's like, yeah, but I can't letter. And that's the thing I kind of am complaining about now. It's like, I can't really letter in it. It doesn't give me the options I want. But I'll figure something out.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, I got really, really good at lettering in Oh, I see Amar is in the chat. He says, I have Affinity Photo now. And he says they bought it for like $35. It's it's not, in terms of drawing, it's not going to give you as much nice a line as Clip Studio Paint or doing digital inks. But what it is good for is all of the compositing and digital design work and adding effects and tones and the kind of Photoshop work that's not drawing. It is a really good replacement for Photoshop for that. Working on both older computers and newer computers.
See, I'm going to offend some people here. It's like, I'm not a big fan of computer ink. I think it's a useful tool for a pro. People that are trying to learn and they're learning to digitally ink, they spend too much time correcting and not enough time drawing.
Yeah.
My advice to them is always the same thing. Go get yourself one of those stupid Sharpie markers, the little skinny ones, and just draw something just with that marker. So you can't correct it. Every mark you make is it, and do it over and over and over again. And then go back and draw with the pencil and find out how many times you actually lift your pencil off the page. Because you'll make this quantum leap to what I call actually drawing. Because there's a lot of noodling, the hairy line stuff. And then there's a lot of that, I'm just going to make this line. Okay, that's this. And you watch somebody like Kubert. Those guys, they whip stuff out. And it's amazing to watch. Like, you could have just gone right into the ink on that. And I'm positive that's how they've done it. It's just go right straight to the ink and just start drawing.
Yeah. I mean, and that's something that I'm constantly fighting against is, I've said that I am a loose and sloppy artist. Like, I probably have more in my head. My work is closer to like Kent Williams and Ashley Wood than it is how I draw. The thing I've noticed about those guys is the reason why they can do that expressive shit and go crazy and loopy and they can do stuff that's exaggerated but sell it is because they have strong draftsmanship. And having that strong core, being able to draw well, means that you can sell convincingly things that would just look like wobbly ass, wonky, bad proportion drawing by anybody else.
Yeah.
So it's not that I've forced myself to tighten up in a bad way. It's like I feel like I'm still in that weightlifting phase where I'm building up my fundamentals so that I'm going to be strong enough that I can cut loose. And I think I'm getting to that point now where my anatomy is still not where I want it to be, but I think I'm going to start leaning into that looser. I'm going to shift back into it and see how it feels. So.
Yeah. And like I said, I think people just crutch that computer, that ability to change and correct yourself all the time. I think they just crutch that too much. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for the biggest thing I think about is just in terms of drawing, I feel like traditional is for learning. Digital is for it's a tool for any type of, if you need an enhancement for speed, if you need special effects, it's a tool to do things that just speed up your process. Yeah. But I don't necessarily think it's great to learn. There's people I know who are taking like online classes and they're drawing all on digital. If that's the only way, then I'm not going to fault them for that. But I think it's much better to just draw your stuff traditionally. If you need to share it online, scan it in, get a good scanner,
Yeah, I think it teaches you to fuss over stuff.
Exactly.
Instead of put it down, move on to the next one. Put it down, move on to the next. Well, that was not perfect. It'll never be perfect. It never will. Does it have energy? Does it tell a story? Is it composition good? Yeah, it's not perfect then, but it's good. Move on.
Exactly. I mean, there's a certain degree to which I think, when you're learning to draw, you're spending your time fussing, trying to get your hand to do what it wants to do. That's just drawing traditionally. So when you're drawing digital, you have to have that double battle of, everyone, when you first switch to digital, you're trying to get the tool to do what you can already do traditionally. So now you're fighting doubly with the tool because you don't have the manual draftsmanship, and B, you're trying to figure out how to get the tool to do what you want it to do. And I'm just like,
it's like we were talking about brushes earlier.
Exactly.
Cripple yourself as much as possible. Use a stupid brush, and suddenly you become amazing. And I'm still not amazing. So, all right, I'm gonna switch cameras here.
All right. You know what? What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pull my shared screen out of this, and I'm gonna put us two up, and then I am going to try to switch my camera, and hopefully it will not freak out at me using because I don't know what's gonna happen with me hosting the stream. Let me just say, I don't want to stop my camera. I just want to switch it to
Let's
see here. Oh, wait, I think I need to, that's what it is. I need to stop the screen share first on mine. Stop my screen share. And now hopefully it'll let me bring up my camera as an option. Huh, that's odd.
It doesn't list your camera options?
Yeah, it only gives me the main thing I have in, but also part of it is because the way I have it set up is I have my iPad plugged in, and I have to have QuickTime on a Mac open and in order to share my iPad.
So it's going to tell you you're on two devices.
Yeah, so it's not. Yeah, but what's weird is it'll give me multiple cameras if I have like a webcam plugged in.
That's how I got mine.
Yeah,
because I just got my USB camera and I popped it over that.
All right, I think that I'm just going to have to figure out a way to have yours up and mine up at the same time, and I think I can figure that out. Let's see here. Let me turn the screen share.
My art's made to be reduced. That way you can't see all my flaws.
Well, hey, that's the whole point of reduction,
It really is. And that was another thing I learned from Batton. Everybody thinks that the art that they're working on is the art piece. It's not. The art piece is the book when you put it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything you're doing has to be made for that piece, the reproduced book work.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got books here that you can tell that the person was a really great artist, but it reproduced like shit. And that was somebody who just didn't understand that you've got to make it for reproduction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's a learning phase unto itself. Just the idea. See, there's something. My buddy, there's a content creator, Carl Altstetter, who he's been kind of a mentor to me. I never full on apprenticed with him, but he'd probably tell me that I'm too stubborn to be an apprentice because there's so much advice he gave me. Like just getting into the habit of flipping my pages. I will tell you, because I give him all credit for that because it's the most important art advice I ever got. It took at least a year, if not like 2 years, of him harping on me before I started flipping my pages. Every time he'd see me drawing, and every time he'd be looking at my show, I'd be like, dude, start flipping your pages. Start flipping your pages. Put them on a light box. Flip it. Look at that. You got to see it. And once I started doing it, I was just, because you know how it is, like the first couple times you do it, you look at it, you're like, why would I do this? My art looks horrible. It's like what you don't see is that it already looks horrible. He's just showing you so you can fix it.
And how many times have you got to that spot where something's wrong? You can't figure it out. You step away from it, you flip it, and you go, oh, well, it's right there. That's why my eyes are on two different levels, or his arm is 6 feet longer on one side than the other, or the characters aren't the same height, or anything like that.
Yeah, it just lets you instantly see the mistakes. And I mean, I have talked to other friends who had the reaction that I had the first couple of times I did it, where it's like, oh, I don't like what my work looks like when I flip it. That's why I don't do it. But I'm like, it allows you, that's all it does. It's just a tool to allow you to see all the things that you wish you had corrected. The stuff that you're going to see a year later when your eye's a little bit better. Like the guy who hosts This American Life on NPR, Ira Glass, he says that the thing about all creatives is that your tastes improve faster than your talent improves.
Unfortunately, that's way true.
So yeah. So like you can see how much you suck because you now are like, the more you can tell the difference between good and bad, the more you can see how much stuff sucks, but you haven't achieved that ability to actually correct it yet. And it's, I look at it now as, it's good because it gives me something to chase. I always expect to have something to chase. And I think that's one of the things I love about art is that there's never going to be a point where I'm just like, oh, I'm done. I've learned everything. I know that I'm never going to reach that point. But I look at the pursuit as the fun educational thing. That's what I love about it.
That's it's all about the journey. I mean, it's you could just go right out and buy this nice polished piece of art, or you can buy the one that leaves a little bit more to the imagination. And art, making the art is the same way. You could just trace it all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, quite frankly, and are you going to have as good a time as the stuff that you sat and kind of agonized over a little bit and discovered something new and figured out this one, little nitpicky part that you've just not seen before, or you never cared to see before, or didn't pay any real attention how it was shaped. Elbows for me were that way. For the longest time, I had that thing where you draw the arms perfectly straight and don't realize it kind of has a curve to it. And what those little quantum leaps you make when you figure that stuff out.
Yeah. I mean, I've been thinking just in that whole learning process that I'm constantly going through a phase where I'm speeding up and then I'm slowing down and getting super analytical. And then I speed up a little bit and I slow down and I get super analytical. It's like each time I learn something, I start trying to run with it. But as I start, I'll go back and dig in deep because I feel like I need that phase of for me, the analytical phase is separate from the creative phase.
I don't think my camera's hitting anything.
No, I can see your and I ended up resting on just I'll leave your drawings up for a little while and then I'll throw some of mine up for a little while. This way, because I couldn't figure out a way to have both of our drawing screens up at the same time, with the screen share the way I have it. So I was just like, let's just roll, just have you up there for a little while.
Sure.
Well, you know what? There was something I was going to ask you when we were talking about you drawing backgrounds.
Oh, sure.
I find, I need reference for everything. And I did not always use reference. And even to this day, I still, basically, my first tool, when I'm having problems with drawing, my first diagnostic question is, did I shoot reference for this? Because 9 times out of 10, if I'm having trouble drawing something, it's just that I was drawing out of my head. And if I just go find reference or shoot reference or set something up real quick, then I'm like, oh, okay, I can draw this now. I was making it up. I don't know my mental library is not built up as much as it should be. That's the first diagnostic tool that I have. But I've been, I guess, struggling with the fact that reference speeds you up in that you don't end up drawing and redrawing, erasing and redrawing, because you just have what the thing looks like. And all you have to do is just either, not necessarily copy the reference, but using the reference, saying, all right, now I know what the thing looks like, lay it down. So it speeds you up in that sense. But the idea of collecting reference beforehand and, shooting models and posing models, shooting reference of yourself and all that it does take a little bit of time. And I've been trying to find that balance in terms of using reference only where it speeds me up and not letting it slow down the process. So I'm curious for you, especially for backgrounds and environments having to be as reference as they are, when you guys were working on deadline stuff, or when you've been working on stuff where you got to knock it out, how do you balance making sure that you get the reference you want and being able to use it to speed you up but not have that reference gathering process slow you down too much?
It would depend on what I'm trying to reference. Like when I'm doing I did Batton's office, like the reference I would use for that is something I had drawn before. And I had basically just but I'd collected up a bunch of photos of different law offices. So I knew kind of what was all in them. And I designed like 2 different corner shots of the office. And I just designed them really quick. It was, hey, this is where the desk is. The window's behind the desk, so you're backlit when you're at this window. This is a brick wall on this side, but a panel wall on this side. It has the bookshelf here, the bookshelf there, a couple chairs, a tabletop, a plant of some kind on the table. And you just kind of build it up that way. You just do it really fast. That way you know where everything's at. Then you can fake it after that. You go, okay, well, I'm looking at this direction. Here's the 3 indicators I need for this. So that's how I did that. My Joan of Arc reference, I actually built a model once on one of the Joan of Arc stories of the town. It was a big model. And it had the little creek flowing through the center of it. And so I could sit down and just take my, my dumbass camera and, here's her going over the bridge, this direction. I found that was way too much. That's way too anal at that point. You just need kind of here's the flow of where your action is. As long as you have your settings and you know where you want your action to come through, then you can keep them pretty consistent. Like with your book where you're in a town, if you just sat for just 2-3 minutes with the piece of grid paper and said, okay, here, the saloon's here. This is here, this is here, this is here. Do I need to know everything about the saloon? Probably not yet, but I do need to know the door's here. There's a window on this side. Does it have an awning over the front? Is there the horse tie-up thing at the front there? The big watering hole. I mean, you kind of need to know where the set pieces are and what they are, and where they are in relation to everything else. Because then you can just every time you change your shot, you can throw that shot in there. And I would do a lot of observation on stuff that I wouldn't think of. Like Batton always had it in New York. And I've seen people fake New York shots a lot. And invariably, they rarely get it right. And there's dumb things that make it look right. Traffic is one of them. Having a lot of traffic. Construction, advertising. If you have a wall that is kind of just a blank wall, someone's put a poster on that damn thing. Gutters. Let me see if I can find this piece. Yeah, just having rain gutters running down the side of a building, and fire escapes, and different types of windows. If you got one building, almost all those windows are going to look exactly the same on the first floor. They may not be the same on the second and third floor. And just kind of observing that kind of stuff. Eisner does the best New York cities. Oh my God, his New York cities are great. Hold on, let me grab a piece here real quick that I actually finished. All right, hopefully we can see this. So we get the
street scene here at the doorway in the alley.
Yeah, see that, and I referenced a couple shots, and so I knew what I wanted, but there's no picture that looks like this. I took it from like the New York Chinatown thing. And then I just referenced a couple alleys that had these really tall windows with the dopey things over the top. But they also had lights that they'd strung across. It's like, oh, I want to do those lights. So I just figured when I drew it, how am I going to string the lights up? Reference the fire escape. Back here I've got just dumb things like the mailbox, and then the solicitation boxes where they have all the little freebie things. Garbage, a bunch of garbage sacks and trash cans. That's a parking garage. Like, so you can walk in here, you park this way, but you're walking this way. And so I put this building in because I really liked the way it looked. I want that on there. And they had different types of lights, but I like these kind of 40-ish style lights. And the cheap industrial lights as you get further and further back in the alley, your pipe drainage, another window over here that you're not quite seeing. And I think what a lot of people start out get wrapped up around, they want to draw all these bricks out, where I just kind of hatched them in and indicated them. And then
I can see like you get just out of the spotlight, you get the detail, you get enough of the structure and the vibe of a couple of bricks. You don't have to do them all the way up the building.
All EC Comics, man. That's how the EC Comics guys, the Kurtzmans and those guys. So I mean, after I drew the bricks, I just went in with the brush and just indicate the dark shadow there. Garbage. You just kind of got to think of things that are in there. There's you got the palette. You're gonna have boxes filled with whatever. I put bottles in it. I've seen people draw boxes that. I mean, you get boxes every day. Does anybody ever really look at them? Know that you have ORMD on the side and your tags. Usually there's tape across the box. That's kind of the stuff that will sell it as far as you throwing this stuff together. It's how much of the stuff do I actually have to draw? How much of it do I indicate? And that's pretty much it. I mean, my reference is usually like, I want to know, what am I not seeing on the palette? Okay, pallets are constructed this way. Okay, well, I need to make those look like pallets. So I've got my cross braces on the back where the forks pick them up and that kind of stuff. A piece of the dumpster here that you don't really see. Just panels of crap thrown in the alleyway. Those are the kind of things you just need enough of them to sell your location. Quiet, dog.
He's giving art critiques in the back. That's what the animals do.
Yeah, and now I have an interior piece. He wanted like a skyloft type setting. And so I looked at a bunch of them, and none of them really were good settings for what I wanted, but I could take pieces from all of them. And so, I mean, it used to be I had a swipe file that I just, dug through in a bunch of binders. Now I just keep it on my desktop for every project. It's like, oh, I need this futuristic looking thing. I will go in and I want this and this and this and this and this. So I got my desk. There was a open to the bay walkway on one of these things. And so I just took that. I kind of made up the stairway a little bit, not a lot. It looked pretty much like that. It was just more compressed. And if I'd have made it more compressed, it would have cut across the figures here, which I didn't want. I wanted to lead down into the lower panels. The beam. When people make rooms, when I bitch about this, you'd be surprised the number of professionals that do this. They'll make a room. It has 4 walls. There's nothing on the walls. I've got a retaining beam right here that connects to this. I got a door here, a door here. I've got pictures on the wall and a couple lights. That's all I really did to sell that. A light switch, and just by doing that, I gave it a feeling of being real. And it doesn't take that much effort. It's doing the slats for the floor. It looks like it takes a lot of time, but it doesn't. It's pretty random. You lay in your lines, go in, find out where you want to put the cross sections, on a hardwood floor, add some texture. And honestly, I'd tell you don't really need to add the texture. This is
texture
noodling.
Texture along with slats on the floorboard. A lot of people forget about the fact that they're just thinking about, it's detail I have to draw. Whereas I look at that as like, that's helping to sell your perspective. It's a grid. Like texture and environmental details can be tools to help you make the thing feel 3-dimensional. And I know it took me years to realize that.
Everything you do like that adds depth. Everything adds dimension, and everything adds, that sense of realism. And you're selling that illusion. Honestly, the hardest thing on this entire damn page was drawing him in that stupid position.
The guy laying on the couch?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see, but I redrew the face like 3 times. It's been whited out there a couple times. The figure, I almost wore through the paper, erasing it over and over again. Because I'd get it on like a transfer sheet, and then I'd stick it on there, and I'd put it on, and it wouldn't look right. And then I'd do it again, and it wouldn't look right. And then I'd do it again. It drove me nuts. And
well, I mean, when you look
like this,
yeah,
those will sell it.
mm-hmm.
Oh, I got some wires out the back. Okay, well, it's real. A trash can with some garbage in it. I mean, I'll say obsess over that stuff, but just always kind of have some of that stuff in your head. And if you use a little bit of photo reference, pick out those things. It's because I photo referenced a couch, just a big floppy, stupid. I wanted it to look like a secondhand couch that had been there a long time. So I referenced a couch and threw it in this apartment. Then just kind of the 1970s table,
I mean, you're being really modest and humble about this, because I feel I'm looking at this and it looks like an incredibly rich environment. And it's
none of it's fussing over it. It's I threw those tables together. Okay, 3 big loops, got kind of a structure that holds them together. It's off a 70s table that I had sitting off to the side, in my swipe file. Like that looked good in this environment. The computer, hey, it's the back of my computer. Do I fuss over and get it all perfect? No, my computer actually doesn't have the little hump in the back. It's an iMac, it's pretty much flat. So it's, you just catch the parts you need. The leg, put some venting on there, some ports.
So it reads as the thing. And that's the important thing, is figuring out how to just make stuff read. Like, what is the detail that makes it read versus the detail that's fussing? Because I have to keep telling myself that even though I want each page to be the best page that I'm capable of drawing, I always have to remind myself, how long is someone going to look at this page? Realistically, less than a minute.
Oh yeah, this page took me almost a day. And how long is the reader actually going to be on here? 30 seconds? Maybe a minute? Will they give it the love and attention that I want them to? No. But it will give them an environment that they think of when they see it, and that makes it immersive. And so they're invested that you have a real place versus you just making it up. And the one that comes to mind is I bought a James Bond comic not too long ago, and it literally was like they put him in the sterile box, and they kind of drew some squares for some windows. There's nothing outside. These windows here, when I go in digitally, I will put an environment outside. It's supposed to be, these aren't really windows, they're television screens. And so I wanted to put in it's supposed to be like rain against the screen, but I'll put in some like digital static effect on parts of it.
Just enough to fill it out, make it a little bit richer and not just flat.
Yeah, and just give it depth. I want everything to be nice and 3D.
I mean, you're inspiring me as I'm looking at this, and I'm like, I want to kick up my environment game going forward, because I've definitely done a lot of this, like just boxes to fill in that, the general shape of the building. A lot of silhouette buildings in my comics.
And this isn't usually how I work. I'm not the biggest fan of black borders. But it's a vampire comic. So we wanted everything dark and gothic. And so in order to do that, I wanted as much black on the page as I could get. And you're already setting yourself up with some unique problems there, because a lot of times you use lighting to tell the story. Well, I don't have that option if I'm making it all black. So you have to kind of come around things. And usually I would do like a holding line around things that I don't hear. Like I would have a separation here between these two. Since it's black on black, I've made that choice to make that. Well, I've got to make that choice over and over and over again to have it be a consistent style. And I had a storytelling problem that right here, if anybody's looking. So you got your guy running through the alley. You go to this thing. You got the bum in the alley. The guy attacks him. So I had the bum looking the other way. Homeless person. Sorry for those of you that are sensitive.
Can you slide it up a little bit so I can see more of the guy? There we go.
So yeah, I had him facing. You just saw his back. And so the storytelling was bad at it, because obviously this guy's coming in this way. This is his perspective coming in at that bum. And then the guy scrambling away from him, gets him from behind there. Maybe some Freudian, I don't know. So I had it completely backwards there, and it didn't read right. And it was shown to John Malin,
And Malin picked up on it right away. He's like, it's kind of a wonky story right there. It's like, damn it, he's right. And so this right here, you'll notice is a different color than that.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a paste up. I did it on a piece of like typing paper. So
Mm-hmm.
I redrew it off to one thing and then just transferred it onto the typing paper and then inked it and then pasted it right over the other figure. So I'm not infallible. If anybody's thinking that, you're wrong. Speaking of textures, can you see his gloves and his?
Yes.
Real simple. I wanted him to look like he was homeless. So dirty clothes, ripped up clothes. It's just a simple textural thing. I mean, it's not anything you can. You can't really fake the textures if you're trying to get a specific texture. You have to put the time in to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can fake it, but it's not that fakery has to sell the texture on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the masters of it are the artists who you can't tell when they're faking it and when they're referencing something specific because they're so good at faking it that when they need to, they're like, all right, well, it comes into storytelling because it's making it feel like what the thing is.
And then just black with work back and white. It's pretty easy. Some pages are gimmies. That's a gimme.
Well, so how long is this project? Is this so it's a collaboration that you're working on with another creator, or is it a work for hire gig?
This is it's not really a collaboration. It's a work for hire, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
He sent me the script. We can go over the process if you want to go over that.
Oh yeah, sure, please.
I mean, I've got all the stuff right here. So he sent me a script. Give me script. Oh, can everybody see that?
Yeah, that's clear.
So this is what the script will come in looking like. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm on page 21, obviously, here. Mm-hmm. So I will do these they aren't even really thumbnails. They're basically just where are the characters in relation to each other and conveying kind of what's going on. So kind of what that page wants there. And I'll do them right on the outside of the script. He gave me a more contained script than most people get because he actually has the page numbers on here.
Mm-hmm.
And then who's saying what to whom. And like all guys that are just barely kind of getting into this, there's some weird storytelling stuff they do. Like they want to put 25 panels on a page, and that doesn't work. He's not so bad at this because I told him right off, keep it only about 3 to 4 panels. Because if I need to fix something, I'm going to have to go in and add a panel.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'll take a panel out if you've got 2 ideas going at the same time, or 1 idea going on 2 panels. So, I mean, I just basically go down, I break the page down like that. So now I know kind of what I want to see, and I can kind of see if there's a storytelling problem that I need to work around. I worked a couple right here because he has an element that I need to kind of design and fix. And these are very undynamic when I do that. So once I get that script done, I understand the script. I understand what he's going for. I understand what his beats are. I will go through and I will quote unquote thumbnail.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, these are kind of detailed thumbnails.
They look more like layouts to me. I think of what you have on the script as thumbnails, and this to me looks like layouts.
Yeah, kind of an intermediate layout. Like that's that page we looked at with him running down the alley.
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff. So what I did is I just basically blew these up, kind of transferred them to the page. I basically blew them up and traced the stuff I wanted. So like if there's a thing I didn't want, like that middle panel, I could change it. And I'll just change it with the blue line. And I'm usually not a big fan of blue line, but I found a specific one that isn't as waxy. Repel the ink. So I've been working on that, and I can just leave it. I don't have to go back and fix stuff. Anyway, I just go in there and I just break it down like I want. I start to make the panels a little more dynamic. Now I can kind of see where my storytelling's a little strange, like right here. I fix that panel later. I fix that one. That's the page I'm actually working on right here. So, where I have the direction flowing this way, I changed it and made the direction flow the other way. One of the storytelling things I had here was you got the spear hand going through there, and it didn't work. to kick him away and have him facing the front. So I turned the figure around. I mean, it's just things like that. This hand, isn't there on the layouts at all. That's because there was no way to draw this panel and get the idea of the extended claw thing without going to I don't know if you can see the hand there.
Yeah, you need that close-up shot framing it.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I need something it doesn't even have to have any text at all. I just need to see it happening. So I threw it up there because I'm working out all the different stuff. Typically, I'll work either on grid paper or I'll work on these transfer. Basically, they're just sheets of clear plastic. You'll see there, I worked on a character sitting in a seat, and you can take it just and clean it off a little bit and redraw it. And they're scribbles, but they're loose enough that you can get what you want out of it. And if you need to make it more dynamic or make it less scribbly, you can work on that. And if you have to, you do come to that part where you have to actually trace. Like, there's no way I knew what the bottom of that car was going to look like. It's supposed to be rolled over on its side. Well, I can just do it real fast here. I can actually just tape it onto my screen, get all the stuff I want, and then go and draw the car. And when I say trace, most people think that you sit down there and you trace all the tiny details. I never recommend that. It's always get the idea down on your tracing and then draw it later. And there's a couple reasons. If you get every detail, the more detail you put on it, the more, what's the word I'm looking for? Static it's going to look, the more
stiff.
Yeah, you lose all that dynamic.
No, when you're putting that acetate on there, are you doing it on a light box? You actually have it underneath, and you're transferring it to your Bristol.
And that's another thing. So let's say I traced this car on its side. Okay, I'm done with that. Let's say it's not in good storytelling form. Well, I can flip it over, and now it's got good storytelling form back to whatever panel I wanted it to go to. And so I'll just tape it on the back of this thing, take it over to my light table, bam, knock out the parts I want. If I'm missing details on there on the light table, I can actually just fix it. And I know that sounds like it's terribly, like there's a lot of work involved there, but it's really not. It's a good time saver. You get good results, and it doesn't look like you fussed over it so much that all you did was trace details. It's using the tool effectively. Yeah, no, I mean, I've found just being able to go and grab an image of what I need and dropping it in has helped me tremendously. The only reason why I don't use a light box anymore is because I found when I was doing my first graphic novel that spending hours staring into that light, it began giving me eye problems. Like I was getting eye strain from looking at the light box, which is weird because now that I'm starting to work digitally, it doesn't seem to have that problem. But I think also it's because nowadays with those USB light boxes, you can just dim it to just the right level of light. Whereas before, it used to be that the light box I have is that big 11x17 square box, those old ones, and it had two. It was either blinding and less blinding. Those were the settings. I had a big industrial one. My light box I just took out of here was 32 by 45 or something like that. It was gigantic. It was a desk, and you click on, and they were the tubes, and you click on both of those things, and that was the light source you needed for the room.
Yeah,
it would light the entire room up, and you didn't want to work on it very long because it heated up, and you'd be sweating over this thing, and it was like, that's terrible. And so I just got this new one. It's like 24 by 18 or something like that. So that's big
still
enough.
Good size.
Yeah, it's big enough I can spin a piece of this around on it, which is usually what I want. Because sometimes I've got the thing I'm tracing is like this and papers like that, So it's big enough I can mess with it and tape stuff to it. Maybe have two sheets if I'm doing like a double page spread, which I hate doing, but I'll do them every once in a while. Yeah, I went and bought that one, and it's LED, so I can get the softer, less abrasive on my eyes. And yet, if I still need it to kind of brighten up a little bit and shoot through, I can. It's got enough power to actually do it.
Yeah, that sounds like a much better balance. What I did up doing was just going to that process of doing my layouts. Well, I only recently started doing stuff digitally. Before it was that I would draw them on vellum. So I was doing my layouts on vellum. That way I could just flip it without being on a computer, flip it, make my corrections on the back, scan in my corrections, and then flip those back digitally. And that's what I would blow up and print out blue line. And I mean, yes, I know that there's, people who want originals with no blue lines on them. But I looked at how many inkers these days, that are just inking, where they're getting the digital pencils and they're printing it out and inking it at home. And I'm like, if it's good enough for those professionals, it's good enough for me. So I was just like, screw it, I'll do it for my own process. But that grew out of just my eyes getting hurt by the light box.
Well, yeah, we were talking about Jason Brubaker earlier, and that's how he did all that Cithra stuff.
Oh, okay.
He'd pencil it digitally.
Mm-hmm.
And he does it in red, which I never got, and then he prints it out and then he inks it traditionally. And that's why it looks so natural and painted.
Mm-hmm.
But the Phobos thing he's gone back and he's done that all digitally.
Okay. Because I have the very first collection, the printed issue 1, which I know he said he was going to release the issue 1. I get this, I'm like, this is a graphic novel.
Well, here's the ugly thing about Phobos. I'll tell you a tale out of school.
Mm-hmm.
When I knew him and he was still in high school, he was graduating high school, he was doing Phobos. And I have that issue.
Yeah, he did say that was a long-time series.
Oh, yeah, it was made on a photocopier Phobos. And you can still see a lot of Jason Brubaker in that thing. He was always really, really dynamic.
That is nice to hear, like even in the early phases, because I feel like most artists, when you look at your old work from like high school and early 20s, we all tend to cringe at it. But I feel like I didn't even start learning how to draw until I was in my 30s. I think part of that is that I had a college experience that was similar to yours, in that I have learned to appreciate things from that experience now. But for the first few years when I got out of it, I actually kind of resented it, because I came out of the program a worse draftsman than I went in. But that's because it wasn't even an illustration program. It was a fine art program kind of geared towards.
That's where I was at.
Yeah.
And fine art programs are terrible about that stuff.
Yeah. Because they really don't care if you can draw you out of a paper bag. It's more about being able to come up with an interesting concept and justify it. And if you can have like an interesting thesis or idea around it, which this is the thing that I benefited from it. In retrospect, I realized it did teach me how to speak about my work, about what I'm doing and why. And they very much encourage creativity. The weirder, the better. They were encouraging you to just follow your ideas and see where they take you and to explore. So it's great for creativity. But in terms of actually teaching you technical skills that you can use to produce artwork to sell, to do work for a client, it didn't. I didn't develop those skills while I was in there. So that was the part that that I still say, yeah, that's not great. Like Art Center is great about teaching you those skills, but Art Center also costs like $40,000 a year if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So
when I first got out of the Army, and I struggled with it for the longest time, I really wanted to go to the Kubert School. And I kind of think I should have, because here's a school that talks your language, and that's all they talk. It's all about how to make comics, how to make product. But I think now, in retrospect, I would not have been as happy, because I'm absolutely certain I'd have come out of there and been able to be a jobber. But really, I never wanted that. I was always looking at guys that did independent stuff, like Grell. Even when he did Warlord, he owned that. That was unusual at DC, that he got to write it and draw it, and it was his. He controlled the fate of that magazine. And so when I saw that, I was like, God, this is great. And then when he went and did Star Slayer, and then he came back and did, John Sable, he had more and more of it. And you hear him talking about owning more and more of it. It's like, that's the thing there. And that was before anybody really started talking about, how bad Kirby had got screwed, and, how bad those guys were. They couldn't get their own art back. They, just how miserable comics had made them. And so over time, it's like, I want to be able to do this, but do it myself. I don't want, some editor, fresh out of college, thinking they know, how everything works, coming in and saying, well, your character's got to do this. It's got to do this because of the. No, damn it. My character does what I tell it to do. I am the boss.
Well, I wouldn't mind actually. That's one of the things I'm considering for my next project, is actually hiring on a freelance editor.
I want an editor to make my story better, but I don't want them to be able to control the ship.
Exactly. For me, I look at it more like it never hurts to have a second eye, but you want that eye to be someone who's coming in and saying, I want to help you make your vision as strong as possible. It's not about someone initially putting their stamp on it. But I definitely believe that, you're always going to have people who catch stuff that you don't catch. And whether it's
Batton had a word for them.
Exactly.
Batton had a word for him. And Jackie she was always the editor, his wife, Jackie. But she is as a professional editor. I mean, she edits textbooks and novels and stuff like that. But she edited that book too. But Batton says it's less of them being an editor and more of them being a bullshit detector. And he would hate the fact I told anybody that. But yeah, it's it's somebody that can go, you're kind of just calling that one in, aren't you? You haven't thought that idea out. Yeah. Okay, fine. I'll go back to formula. Let me figure that out.
Yeah. And and a lot of that stuff, like, I feel like a good editor can help you catch a lot of stuff in the writing phase, such that you're not going to make some, I feel like good writing makes it harder to make bad storytelling decisions on the page.
Yeah.
Because you don't necessarily want to get a script where someone's directing you like every single panel, every single shot. You want to be able to compose it. But if the story is told well, then it's like it leads you to a place where you can make fruitful decisions, that the creative vision is very laid down to make it easy for you to find the best compositional solution on the page. And I mean, do you have the sense for you that that writing and drawing are very separate phases? Because I definitely feel like that way for me.
God, yes. I can't do both. I have to stop, do the writing, figure out the writing problems, figure out where I've screwed up the continuity of it, whatever that is. And then I can slip into drawing mode, but it takes time to get back into that, which is why I tend to work out of sequence on the pages. It's, I'll go to the pages that I have a lot of black on them and have a lot of, not as much stuff happening, more just raw, boring draftsmanship, like buildings and things like that I'm just basically going to rule out. I'll start on those, kind of get my drawing chops back, flowing again. And then I'll get into the finicky, drawing hands and faces and hair and all the weird poses. And yeah, I cannot do both. It's two different sides of my head screaming at me.
Yeah, that's it. Well, what's interesting is going forward, I want to get into the habit of writing every day, only so that I never have. My biggest problem has been every time I finish a project, I'm like, okay, now it's time for me to start the next project. And I go into a long phase of teaching myself how to write all over again. Yeah. And it takes like weeks to get up to speed. I took like a almost 2-month break in the middle of Morningstar after I finished issue 4, because I realized that I had set up some stuff that didn't quite make sense. And I'm like, this is going to screw up the story if I don't fix these problems. So I just said, all right, I'm just going to stop. And I ended up rewriting the last 4 issues. And it probably took me 2 months to do that, maybe even 3. But figure if I'm just in the habit of writing every day, no matter what, then it's like that's separate from my drawing time. I just do it, maybe get in like a half hour of writing time. And then I'm never having to reteach myself how to draw. I mean, how to write, but I can be writing whatever the next project is while I'm drawing something else. That way, when I finish the writing part of it and it's good to go, then I'm like, all right, I just start writing a new project, but I never stop writing. Because that's the thing. If you, any phase of the process, if you stop sketching all the time, you get bad with the penciling. If you're not using a brush all the time, you get bad with the inking. You get rusty with all of it. And I'm trying to recompose my creative process so that I can find time to be practicing all of the elements, the writing, the visual storytelling, the draftsmanship, the ink work, to be working on to have all of them at some point in my day, which it's tough to fit all of that in. And I don't really know A, how I'm going to do it, and B, how successful it's going to be. But it's what I feel I need in order to progress, be able to produce work faster.
When I say I can't write and draw, I can't write the script and draw. I can plot stuff, which I end up doing. I end up doing like that goofy story that I had all the tones on. Since that story's got its own weird little tale to tell, but since I'm working on that at the same time I was working at this, and then I took time off to do this, I think of the plot more. Where how do I get it from A to B to C to D? What am I trying to get across on this? That kind of stuff. I just can't sit down and go, okay, he talks to so and so, and here's the conversation they're having, and it's about this. It's just the major stuff. I can go, okay, here's my great idea for this. Okay, here's my great idea for this.
Well, I find that drawing, any phase of it, particularly inking, but any phase of drawing is really great for letting your brain solve those big plot details on a different project. Because your mind is gonna it's processing in the background. It's that little beach ball wheel on the computer spinning. It's doing that. So you might as well let it chew on something that's a narrative problem. And I do find that seems to work pretty well, in that I'll just be drawing, and then I'll think about something. I'll be like, damn it, I gotta go rinse out my brushes real quick. So I'm gonna have to sit there and type for 5 minutes and just get down this story element that I solved.
Well, that's why I don't use waterproof ink, right?
No, I did not know that.
I use this. The old Sumi Black. And it's not waterproof. So I have to be careful I don't spill anything on it or spit on it or whatever. But it's because even if I let a brush dry out, it's not waterproof. So I can go back and soak it for a while and get it clean.
That's a good trick. I may have to get a bottle of that and try it out. I've been my brand for years has been Speedball Super Black.
I like Speedball, but I think Speedball will work more if you're using the blue line. Speedball seems to stick to that waxy surface, and that's the biggest problem with the Sumi is, like I said, this is a special one I found, but the other pencils I was using, the blue line pencils,
the repellent.
Yes, it just floats on there, and then if you hit it with any kind of a eraser, it lifts it up. Unless you're using like one of these.
I haven't seen one of those since my high school drafting class.
They're some of the greatest things ever invented.
You know what? And I realized I should be using those. Like, just finish a section, get it inked, and then just sort of, tap it down. But I have not.
It just lift enough of the pencil away that you can scan it. Yeah, I used them a lot when I was framing, because that gets the oils and stuff off the mats. Because every once in a while you get crap on the mats, and you just don't want it on there, and it makes a funky fingerprint. Nobody wants to see it.
Yeah, trying to get it as pristine as possible, which, yeah.
And so, you use those to kind of lift that stuff off. And that I started using it on the art you wear the gloves, and so you probably don't have this problem. So,
yeah, the oil's all over the hands.
Some of us are stupid, and we can't seem to get around that glove thing. And so you'll get a smudge on there that's an oily smudge, and you're going across the thing there, and it'll float. It does that weird bubbly float thing. And you have to go back and you have to saturate it. And it's like, what a pain in the butt. So I learned that you can just take that there and kind of daub your page a couple times, and it lifts most of that stuff away. And you end up having less problems in your inks. What are you complaining about?
He's like, he hates it when he gets ink bubbling on his page too.
She's just complaining. It's like, I want snacks. Why are there snacks?
Well, you know what? I realized we've been going for not quite, but almost 2 hours here. So I want to be respectful of your time. And
I'll go as long as you want to go.
Well, I know I also have some housey chore type stuff. Why don't I run through the chat and see if there's any questions here that we want to answer real quick? Maybe like we'll wrap it up at the top of the hour. So let me see here.
Sure.
Let's see here. I got to see. Butts Peters says there are inks which never fully dries in a brush. Wash becomes obsolete. Oh, he's talking exactly what you're saying. The Kuretake Sumi ink is a good example.
And another advantage of that Sumi, though, is it lays down the most coal black you've ever seen. I mean, where did I put that? I mean, look. Here's a page pretty much filled with black. Look how black that is.
That looks fantastic.
There doesn't seem to be any. You don't get a lot of those light spots. I mean, every once in a while you'll get one that's just a little lighter like that, but it's just coal black. And when you hit it with the scanner, the things you've made white just radiate. And so it seems to save a lot of cleanup when I use the darker ink. I sometimes wish it was waterproof, but then other times I'm glad it's not. I haven't come up with a real reason that I have to have a waterproof ink. So I've just never changed.
I mean, yeah, that's the main thing is if you find a process that works for you, that finding a process that works is the hardest part. So
experiment with everything. There's my advice.
But yeah, I mean, I'm that's on one hand, I am tempted to pick up a bottle and give it a try because I just like trying stuff out. Yeah, but also
you can get little bottles of it.
Yeah. But I mean, this coming year, now that Morningstar is wrapping up, it's going to be like a big experimental year for me. Like I'm going to experiment with working digital just to see how it affects my workflow. I mean, I'm going to experiment with I'm not going to be starting a new comic that I'm going to be showing anybody in terms of drawing it until next year. So it's going to be a lot of me doing like art studies. I'm probably going to take on some commissions. It's just going to be like, let me just see what happens if I change up everything, because there's, to a certain degree, I'm very happy with the work that I've produced over the past decade in terms of the project. I'm proud of it, even though I know it's not perfect, but it hasn't led to the point where I'm making more income from that. And it's not like I'm going to be leaving my day job anytime soon. And that whole, the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Yeah. So I just want to see what happens if I'm like, all right, let me just try doing some other stuff and seeing how the world responds to it.
Well, and that's why I like these videos like yours and when Jason puts his on, things like that. I see that, hey, they don't do things the way I do. I should try that.
Yeah, it's good it's inspiring to just pick up and look at some other things and be like, and I feel like I'm constantly trying to curtail myself and say, don't go crazy, getting sucked in with other people's stuff, because it's like there's a certain degree to which every new technique that someone shows you is like a bright new shiny toy, and you want to run and play with it. But then you spend all your time experimenting and very little of it actually producing the thing. So for me, it's always about a balance. Everything is a balance. Like with art books, I have so many art books that I don't actually study from. Like I recently started going through. I
have some that I only find one portion of it that has any value, and And so I'll buy the damn book like an idiot, and then I'll kind of pirate that one little portion and look through the rest of them and go, I don't need that. I got that from someplace else. And so now I've got all these books, and every once in a while I'll find something good out of them.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. All of them, I think they're a gold mine to some degree or other. Some, it's like every single page is gold. Some, it may just be 5 pages or a handful of pages that really have the thing that helps you out. But the fact that I've just had all of these books that I've been collecting over years, there's a certain mental thing in my mind. I feel like if I see a book that's well drawn, has a lot of great art in it, that if I buy the book, my imagination thinks, oh, I'll be good because I have the book. And it's like, no, you have to absorb the material. You have to work with it. You have to practice it. Just owning the book doesn't make you like a good artist at all.
So there's things I want to try, like that one I showed you with the tones on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to lean more heavy the Toth direction on that thing. So less hairy lines, less feathering, more shapes, and more, dramatic light and shadow. I the way I want to go in that book, I think that's it. And so I start experimenting that way. But when I get the commission job like this, nobody wants to see that. It's like, all right, tell me how you want it drawn.
Like, I can do it. What style? Just tell me the style. Order up. We'll give you number 3 with pickles.
Yeah, it's kind of. I think you came in at the DeviantArt phase, right? When I was doing DeviantArt, which I found less and less valuable as it went along, and I think it's because DeviantArt only caters to a certain
anime manga heads.
Yeah, anime manga weebs, and not that that's terrible. It's they all have the same terrible habit. It's close your ears, younger viewers. It's the mutual masturbation society.
Yes.
It's, oh, you're great. No, you're great. No, you're great. You're great. Hey, are any of you guys buying books? No? None of you are great. Get the hell out of here.
Buying books, or any of them making books?
Yeah, most of them aren't even making books. And then you give them like legit advice, not criticism, but advice. It's like, hey, look, you do this anime stuff. The characters, pretty good. You've got that style down. Does that style have value? That's a different kind of argument for somebody else. However, when you're making your little cartoons and your comics, none of your goddamn books have any backgrounds. Right? Your characters exist in this funky loading phase of the Matrix where it's just a white space. You may make a corner of a room. Yeah, but it's a room that has nothing on the walls. It's a room that doesn't have curtains or windows. It's a room that makes some damn backgrounds. And then learn how to make good backgrounds. Well, what do you mean? It's not just a wall. Is it a stucco wall? Is it a brick wall? Is it lattice? Is it slats? Is it? I mean, you think
make it feel like build a world.
Yeah, you think these things aren't important, but they are. That's how you make good cartooning.
And see, the interesting thing is that my favorite Japanese and manga artists are artists who they are good artists. Like,
oh yeah,
and full stop. It doesn't have anything to do with them having a manga style. Like Masamune Shiro, he's a master storyteller.
It's like, can you imagine Ghost in the Shell with those weird Weibo backgrounds?
It would be horrible.
Yeah, it's like, well, what the hell? I mean, the biggest part of Ghost in the Shell is the setting of that world.
Yeah,
the skyscrapers that go on for freaking ever, and weird vehicles, and all the tech, and he's drawing all that crap.
And he researches his weapons so thoroughly. Yeah. That's a place where I feel a deep level of shame, because I definitely don't. For as much gunplay as there are in comics and fighting, and it's something that I need to work into my research more, is researching firearms better, different types of weapons. I've been telling myself I've never been a big sports fan, but to just start watching MMA fights, just to watch people fighting, watch the actual movements of different styles of combat.
But you know what I tell you on the fighting part? That the MMA stuff, yeah, that's good fighting, but it's not visual fighting. I would tell you find the old Shaw Brothers movies.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff.
Like Five Deadly Venoms and stuff like that, because that stuff is visual. And when you're doing it on the page, that's really what you want. You want it to be these visual marks. And the MMA fighting is, like I said, it's more realistic. It's more combative. Every once in a while, they get a nice visual flair. Most of it is laying on the ground, trying to beat the hell out of the guy that you threw to the ground, or trying to get some sort of advantage over your opponent.
Getting a hold on him, getting him to submit.
Yeah, it's like doing a basketball comic, or doing a boxing comic. 90% of it's going to be boring.
Yeah.
But you get that Shaw Brothers stuff, and everything is this acrobatic, weird, psychotic thing. It's like I'd recommend those. And when I was in college, I took judo, and I took taekwondo, and you see that stuff. It's like you kind of blow it off because it's not super realistic effective. But the Shaw Brothers movies look effective, and they look like they have power, and they look like there's a natural grace and things like it's like, yes, that's what you want. That's the stuff. And so I actually incorporated that in that book, the one I had the tones on. There's a kung fu fight in that. And
cool. And
I actually tried to make different styles. So the one character there is an American 50s rock and roller. We'll put it that way because I can't use the actual name of the character. So he has like a stiffer karate style, and the other guy he's Russian. And so he practices sambo. So it's going to be a lot of grappling and some strikes and stuff. And just thinking about how they do that, and then what is the ridiculous, over the top violence part of this that I can make, that really makes the interesting part. I bet you I redrew those fight scenes 5-6 times.
Wow.
And like completely trying to choreograph them. That's the thing that most people I think find hard on the page, is choreographing the fight. They'll just show a bunch of punches and stuff, and it's like, well, that didn't flow very well. Watch how Kirby does this stuff. It goes from this to this to this to this, because that's how it would have to progress in order for the body to move in these different ways.
It's both a ballet and it's storytelling.
Yes, very much. And you're just kind of picking out beats too. You're not trying to show every blow.
Well, I mean, that goes back to the John Buscema stuff in the How to Draw Comics the Marvel way, when he's showing you the staging. No, not just using the most extreme level of action in a punch or a kick, but also that moving you through the panel, moving your eye through the fight scene or whatever.
Yeah, it's that balance.
Well, so we're at 2 hours here, and I'm gonna have to return to the real world. Real world life stuff is gonna be calling me. So I was gonna ask you that let me see. I see Crayway's in the chat. He just says hi, and I also saw my buddy Zeus Toves, Jesse. So good to see you too, man. I'm glad you guys popped in. Mighty Geek Studios is here, guys. Thank you so much for dropping in. What I wanted to ask you, Trevor, is I have your YouTube channel. I have that link, and I can pop that both in the chat, and I can pop it into the description of this video afterwards. But I was going to ask if there was any place else that you wanted to direct people online to check out more of your work.
Right now, that's pretty much it. I've got rid of most of the other stuff. I mean, they can go. That's Batton, by the way, in case people were wondering.
Oh, slide it up a little bit more. It'll be a little bit more in the screen. That's a beautiful piece.
That was done by Bill Sienkiewicz.
Ah, okay. I was going to say, it looks like Sienkiewicz.
For Batton's funeral.
And everyone if you're not familiar with Batton Lash, you should definitely look up his work and his legacy. He casts a long shadow in the comics industry.
Batton, he loved independent guys. If you were just some kid walking in with your photocopied book, Batton's going to look at it, and Batton's going to encourage you. Not criticize you, but encourage you. It's like, well, work on this and work on this, and it's going to be this much better. One of the things that everybody would love about Batton. Anyway, where were we
Yes.
on this?
No, I just wanted to make sure that your YouTube channel was something you wanted, because I know you're still building it out. You got everything set up, but I didn't know if you wanted me to direct people to that or not.
Yeah, if they want to go to the Great Heathen Army, that's fine. I'm going to start throwing stuff on there. Don't expect a lot of comic stuff or drawing stuff yet, because I always wanted it to be about stuff I wanted to be interested in, which I love comics and everything too, but I'm also a hot rod head. I love cars, you know. I'm building a BMW race car right now just because
Oh, damn.
I'm silly and I like going on autocrosses. You know, I love cars, love guns, I love, army crap because I'm in the army.
and by the way, I forgot to say thank you for your service. You make it possible for us to have the freedoms to create stories and make art and do all the fun, crazy stuff that it is by keeping the rest of us civvies safe. So greatly appreciate it.
Trust me, it's more selfish than it seems. I mean, honestly, I love getting all the thanks, but it's like I didn't really. I'm not as magnanimous as people think. I'm kind of a jerk, damn it.
Well, hey, but you're a jerk that's doing an important part of defending the freedoms that that this country that we're allowed to have here. So I mean I've been doing a bit more. Oddly enough, the first book I had was kind of a political thriller, and when I realized that people wanted me to do a follow-up, I had to really think about what his life would be afterwards, and it had a lot of like government conspiracy thrillery stuff. And in researching afterwards, I'm like, I really need to understand what role this character would play in the world. And in listening to, like, I had recently listened to the book Battlefields by H.R. McMaster, and just understanding that a big part of what we think of as just political conflicts and like conspiracy stuff that you were talking about, like conspiracy theories in books, a lot of this is about the fact that regardless of what we may think the world should be like, that it's not like that. And a big part of what we're doing in the world is not necessarily about trying to take it over. It's about making sure that people who disagree aren't trying to destroy our way of life. And I think that that's something that, being a person who tends to be more liberal, took people's good nature for granted. Because we do like to believe that there's good natured people all over the world, and there are also people who are not.
Even that good nature is self-serving.
Yes. So it's given me more of a healthy respect.
And you mentioned that, and I think we've talked about the DeviantArt page before. If they want to go see that, there's old stuff on there they can go look at.
Mm-hmm.
But that book I was doing on there, even though it tended to lean kind of political, it wasn't intentional. It was supposed to be more autobiographical. And people would jump on it for dumb reasons. And it would be, no, you're missing the point of this book. This is the perspective of someone who's actually going to go out in a combat area and how he feels about doing this crap. That character is my analog, not somebody else's opinion of political things. Like, no, that's my analog.
And it's possible that people also missed how goddamn funny it was, because it was hilarious. It really was enjoyable.
And it was just made to call to task some stupid fucking opinions that people kept putting out there that like, these aren't arguments that are hard to beat up. I am picking a soft target, but it's arguments that everybody was touting, especially at the time, that I don't know. And the three characters that they always see on there those were three DJs that still work here today. And I was literally taking the arguments that they were doing on the radio and beating the hell out of it. So the fictional interview was just me making fun of them. And I mean, there's three issues of that thing. One of them, well, I don't know, I can't quite see it. What the hell? You see how messy my room is? So up on the wall there, that is halfway through the other issue of that same book. And I'll finish it eventually, but what I'm thinking, because it was always intended to be a online book. Very serialized, very put it out, when I get it put out.
Yeah.
Thing. I love doing it, but it's not a style that I really really enjoy doing. So the other books that come along, I jump on those because A, they pay the bills, and B, I'm more interested in what they have to say. That one, that's just venting. And I experimented a lot on those pages. I don't know if anybody really looks at them, you'll notice the style changes tons throughout the thing. The first ones I posted up, the ones that talk about me as a kid, that was done for 24-hour Comics Day. I did the first 24-hour Comics Day. So I'm banging those pages out. There's barely any backgrounds. I made one in a freaking blizzard just simply so I didn't have to draw a lot of backgrounds. And that's the only one I ever finished for 24-hour Comics Day.
I've never even attempted it, so
it's a bitch.
Yes.
Honestly, if I was to do it again, I would do it on a smaller scale. And the key to getting through 24-hour Comics Day, very, very tiny story. You can only go from A to B. You can't even get to C. You haven't got time to tell that full story. You know, it's insane. But I've done it 3 times. First one I did 24 pages, pens and inks. Second one I did 24 pages or 28 pages of pencils. Third time I did 16 pages of pencils.
That's still a lot.
But they all have backgrounds this time.
I feel like for 24-hour Comic Day, background should be optional. I wanted to quick give a shout just to draw and talk. He said, love the channel and love the content, but it's a super chat there. So, you know, just so everyone knows, the channel is available for super chats. So it's nice to show some love, and I appreciate him hopping on here and giving some love. So thank you so much. I'm glad you're enjoying this, and I'm going to put Trevor's YouTube channel in the description. It's in the chat, but I'm going to put it in the description for the video afterwards. So anyone who wants to can go down there, check out his work. You know, like I said, it's not going to be all comic centric. It's going to be what you want to share and put out there. So
it'll be dopier than you can possibly comprehend. I mean, I already did one when I saw the car I've got is the BMW Z3. I just bought it 4 days into it. I blew up the tensioner on the drive belt. And so it's me replacing the tensioner on the drive belt, kind of blind. And so it's like, okay, we're going to do this really fast. Oh, shit, I got to take the radiator out. Okay. I got to get the fan out of the way. Oh, come on. And it's like anything, you know, you do. It's really more humorous after the fact. But at the time, it was, even then, it was kind of like, this will be funny as hell once I put it on there. It's maddening now. It's funny as hell then.
You know what? I want to make sure I have the right channel. It's got the Great Heathen Army on there, but it doesn't have the other video.
It doesn't. I hadn't put it up yet. I have to.
Oh, okay. So you're giving me a sneak preview of what's coming. All right, cool.
You'll see it. There's a couple of them on there, and I've been experimenting with editing and things like that. It should be fun. It'll be demonetized so fast your head will spin.
Well, you know, I mean, I've got anytime you're drawing nude figures, you have to put it up as you can put it on YouTube, but you have to make it an 18 or only video, and that automatically makes it demonetized. But there was times where I was trying to do studies from Michelangelo, and my stream kept getting shut down. I kept getting bounced from the live stream. So like, nah, you can't be drawing nudes live online. So it just.
I realize it's an art channel, right?
I know. All right, man. I know we can rap forever. So let's.
Anytime you want to do it, just let me know.
We'll definitely have you back on again in the future. So anyway, guys, definitely check out Trevor's work. He's an amazing artist, amazing storyteller, amazing human being. So and for my work, again, if you enjoy this channel, if you enjoy the work that I'm sharing, if you want to get additional bonus live streams every month where I'm actually drawing from George Bridgman's complete guide to drawing from life, you go to patreon.com/Jeremy. That's patreon.com/GERIMI. You want to hop on my monthly newsletter. It's newsletter.jeremy.net. I take the best of my social media posts from the month, usually a link to one of the live streams if you end up missing them. Toss all that in there, some more behind the scenes goodies, all delivered right into your inbox every month. Newsletter.jeremy.net. And again, all these descriptions all these links are in the description for the video. And if you would like to purchase physical copies of my comics, go to amazon.jeremy.net. That will forward you to my Amazon author page. So again, everyone, thank you so much for hanging out.
It's
Trevor,
Trevor, price of admission. He's great.
I appreciate that. Trevor, you're a great artist, and I've learned a lot from you. I learned a lot just from hanging out and talking. It's great. So I appreciate you coming on.
I can shoot the shit about comics history.
We'll consider this one part one, volume 1. So everyone else, thank you so much. That's it for now. Go